Joe Biden has no plan. He's got absolutely no plan. He doesn't even know what the word inflation means.
Oh, you did it! Joe Biden's so dumb. The case he's making to the American public is that he's the sharpest tool in the shed. He called Milwaukee, quote, a horrible city.
There's so much crime in the city, I can't comprehend how people live there.
New York is now this dystopian hellhole of crime and violence.
Is now a dystopian hellhole?
Go out for a loaf of bread, you end up getting shot.
Yeah, you get shot!
Jon Stewart just delivered a verbal beatdown on Trump so brutal it might be considered a hate crime. Somebody call the police because I'm pretty sure we just witnessed a murder on live television. Trump's gonna need some aloe vera for those burns. Jon Stewart wastes no time in taking aim at both presidential contenders, Biden and Trump, in his trademark comedic style.
Basically, it's Trump tripping over his own anytime he tries to capitalize on Biden's age.
With the precision of a marksman, he sets his sights on their perceived weaknesses, firing off witty one-liners that leave the audience in stitches. Stewart quips, "The election is basically boiled down to each candidate accusing the other of having soup where there should be brain," a line that perfectly encapsulates the absurdity of the political circus.
The election has basically boiled down to each candidate accusing the other of having soup where there should be brain.
But Stewart isn't content with just a single jab. He goes on to poke fun at Biden's alleged cognitive issues, joking about the president's habit of seemingly staring at what can only be considered ghosts or out-of-frame paratroopers. The imagery is both hilarious and unsettling, painting a picture of a leader who might be a bit too familiar with the supernatural.
There is plenty of fodder for the attacks. For instance, for President Biden, it is his habit of seemingly staring at what can only be considered ghosts.
And if that wasn't enough, Stewart suggests that Biden gives the impression that someone has just quantum leaped into his body, a reference that's sure to tickle the funny bone of any sci-fi fan.
When he's pulled back into frame, somehow giving the impression someone has just quantum leaped into his body.
But don't think for a second that Trump escaped Stewart's razor-sharp wit unscathed. The comedian gleefully mocks the former president's attempts to capitalize on Biden's age, noting how Trump keeps tripping over his own dick whenever he tries to make a point. It's a crude but effective metaphor that perfectly captures Trump's propensity for self-sabotage.
Turning Point USA, where Trump articulated his case for having best brainful neurons smart.
Stewart's comedic assault on Trump continues with a hilarious anecdote about the former president's inability to remember his own doctor's name. Ronnie Johnson? Really, Donald? It's Ronnie Jackson, you stable genius. The audience roars with laughter as Stewart exposes Trump's hypocrisy in claiming to have the best brainful neurons smart while simultaneously bungling basic facts. But Stewart isn't just in it for the cheap laughs. He uses humor as a tool to create a balanced platform, setting the stage for a more nuanced critique of Trump later on.
I don't think if you gave him a quiz, I think he should take a cognitive test like I did. I took a cognitive test and I aced it.
By targeting both Biden and Trump's gaffes, Stewart maintains an air of impartiality, making his subsequent focused takedown of Trump all the more impactful. It's a masterclass in political satire, and Stewart is the professor. He exaggerates each candidate's weaknesses to highlight their perceived incompetence, from Biden's aversion to direct sunlight to Trump's boastful claims about his cognitive prowess. The audience is left in stitches, but also with a newfound appreciation for the power of comedy to expose the absurdities of our political landscape. But Stewart is just getting started. He's warmed up the crowd with his equal opportunity roasts, but now he's ready to zero in on the real target of his comedic ire, Donald J. Trump. The former president's gaffes and contradictions are a comedy goldmine, and Stewart is about to hit the motherlode. From misnaming his own doctor to making nonsensical statements about cognitive tests, Trump's blunders are ripe for the picking. And if Stewart's opening salvo is any indication, we're in for a wild ride of laughter and political commentary that's sure to leave a mark. Trump's gaffes are a veritable treasure trove of comedy for Jon Stewart, who gleefully seizes upon every slip-up and contradiction. Take, for instance, the time Trump boasted about acing his cognitive test, only to misname his own doctor, calling Ronnie Jackson Ronnie Johnson. Stewart can't resist poking fun at this blunder, quipping, "The case he's making to the American public is that he's the sharpest tool in the shed. He got the guy's name wrong on his cognitive test." It's a classic Trumpian moment, bragging about his mental prowess while simultaneously demonstrating his propensity capacity for error. But wait, there's more. Stewart also highlights the delicious irony of Trump criticizing Biden's understanding of inflation, only to unwittingly provide a spot-on definition of the concept himself. Stewart sarcastically acknowledges Trump's accidental accuracy, underlining the absurdity of the situation. It's a comedic goldmine, with Trump's own words and actions providing the punchlines. Stewart's keen eye for contradictions is on full display as he juxtaposes Trump's assertion that Biden is unable to define inflation with Trump's own surprisingly coherent explanation of the term. The humor lies in the stark contrast between Trump's intended message and the reality of his statements. As Stewart points out, it's Trump who seems confused, not Biden. The irony is not lost on Stewart, who emphasizes the ridiculousness of Trump attempting to paint himself as cognitively superior while tripping over his own words and facts. It's a classic case of the pot calling the kettle black, and Stewart wastes no time in calling out Trump's hypocrisy. He sums it up with a memorable one-liner, Trump tripping over his own dick anytime he tries to capitalize on Biden's age. Through his razor-sharp wit and biting sarcasm, Jon Stewart exposes the gaping flaws in Trump's logic and the inherent humor in his self-inflicted gaffes. By holding a comedic mirror up to Trump's missteps, Stewart not only entertains his audience, but also sheds light on the absurdity of the political landscape.
It is his habit of seemingly staring at what can only be considered ghosts or out-of-frame paratroopers. Basically, it's Trump tripping over his own dick anytime he tries to capitalize on Biden's aid.
But while Trump's verbal blunders provide ample fodder for Stewart's comedic commentary, the host also delves into more serious matters, like the Republican narrative surrounding crime in Milwaukee. Brace yourself for a reality check as Stewart takes aim at the exaggerated claims and sets the record straight with cold, hard facts from the FBI. It's a masterful blend of humor and hard-hitting journalism that you won't want to miss. But Stewart wasn't done shredding Trump's Milwaukee malarkey just yet. He sarcastically broke down the former president's so-called clarification on his crime comments. Well, I think it was very clear what I meant. I said we're very concerned with crime. I love Milwaukee. I have great friends in Milwaukee, but it's, as you know, the crime numbers are terrible and we have to be very careful. Ah yes, the classic Trump word salad, served with a side of vague backpedaling and a sprinkle of name-dropping his supposed Milwaukee pals. Stewart then took aim at the right wing's go-to narrative of painting Democratic-run cities as crime-infested holes. It's a tale as old as time, but there's just one tiny problem. The cold, hard facts don't exactly support this doom and gloom portrayal. In fact, the FBI's own reports tell a very different story. Stewart pointed out that violent crime is actually on the decline nationwide, with overall rates down 15% from last year and murders plummeting by a whopping 26%. But don't expect the right-wing media to let a little thing like data rain on their fear-mongering parade. As Stewart astutely observed, they're more interested in pushing the narrative of how people feel about crime rather than what the numbers actually show. It's a classic case of feels over reals, or as Stewart put it, Democrats will say, well, but crime is down, it's not how people feel. Yeah, as the right always famously says, feelings don't care about your facts. But wait, there's more! Stewart didn't just take shots at Trump, he also took aim at the entire Republican Party and their stance on gun control. Talk about a bunch of hypocrites. These guys love to complain about gun crime in Democratic cities, but when it comes to actually doing something about it, crickets.
We had our beautiful Marine standing there, bing, 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 bing. You know, in the old days, bing, bong.
Acing that cognitive test is a great point, if only his doctor was actually named Ronnie Johnson.